what MassBays is doing in relation to seagrasses, and then we'll hear from Kim Starbuck, who's at the Urban Harbors Institute, who will also talk a little bit about what the Institute does and how it's supporting eelgrass management. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jill.
Great, thanks, Shannon.
Yep.
Let's get going here. Okay, so as Shannon mentioned, I am from the Massachusetts Bays National Estuary Partnership. We are a center at UMass Boston in the School for the Environment, and we're part of the EPA National Estuary Program. And this is a nationwide program that protects, restores, and manages estuaries of national significance. And these are protected under the Clean Water Act. So you can see 28 of our NEPs from across the country, all our coasts. And again, these are our estuaries where fresh water from the watersheds meets ocean water, creating these really unique habitats. Ours is up there, number 3, MassBays National Estuary Program. And what our team looks like at UMass Boston is 3 central staff. We have a director, myself managing our habitat programs, and we currently have a graduate research assistant who you'll hear from in a little bit. And we also fund 5 regional coordinators throughout our service area, which extends from the New Hampshire border down along Cape Cod Bay and up to Provincetown. So you can see in that map there the towns that we include in our service area, and then the partners that are our regional coordinators. A little bit about my career path in getting here. I did my undergraduate in coastal studies at the University of Connecticut about 20 years ago, and then more recently went back for my master's in GIS at Salem State University. And I've had a variety of jobs in the environmental science sort of field of study, starting with consulting just out of my undergrad, doing freshwater wetlands consulting, lots of like wetland delineations out in the field. I left that to get back into the marine environment through an internship at the Nature Conservancy at their St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands location. That's where I really started to fall in love with habitats, especially coral reefs there and lobster habitat. And because of that unpaid internship experience, I came back home from that and got a really great job at the Mass Division of Marine Fisheries. That's a state fisheries agency doing at-sea lobster sampling, which sort of over the course of a decade or so evolved into more of a habitat-focused project where I started working with eelgrass, doing mapping and restoration work. And now here I am at MassBays, the program manager for that same habitat work. So it's been a really nice adventure. And if there's any students on the line, I can't stress enough the importance of getting out there for volunteerships, internships, and so on. Just get as much experience as you can. Back to MassBays. These are some of our priorities in our estuaries. One being water quality that can support a high degree of biodiversity. We are aiming for habitat continuity and connectivity and habitat quality and ecosystem resilience. We're primarily focused on the 4 habitat types you see pictured on the bottom of the screen. Seagrasses, salt marshes, mudflats, and diadromous fisheries habitats. So that's places where fish are moving between freshwater and marine waters. But we're also interested in beaches and wrack habitats and kelp. But today we'll just be focusing on seagrasses, as Shannon mentioned. Globally, there's over 70 different species of seagrasses. There's a lot of seagrass diversity in the Indo-Pacific and the Caribbean areas. A little bit less diversity when you get up here to New England and the Northeast. We really just have 2 species here, widgeon grass, Rupia maritima, and eelgrass, Zostera marina. And we'll really be focusing our talk today on eelgrass. It's just better studied, better mapped, and better understood here in Massachusetts. A little bit of eelgrass 101. Eelgrass, at least here in Massachusetts, is nearly always below the mean low tide line. So it's always submerged. So it's not to be confused with plants that you see sort of up on shore. Those are usually salt marsh plants. So if you want to see eelgrass, you have to get below the water line. And it really just forms these lovely, large, dense meadows like you see in the video playing here. It's given its name eelgrass because each plant has 3 to 5 strap-like or eel-like leaves. Really has nothing to do with the fish eel, common misconception. And this plant is widespread in the temperate northern latitudes. It really likes shallow, roughly 0 to 30 feet deep marine waters and really does tend to prefer protected embayments. So places where, large storms, hurricanes aren't going to uproot the eelgrass. So some of the benefits of eelgrass, to add to what Shannon mentioned earlier, fisheries habitat is often seen as one of the leading priorities among our coastal community and fishing community, but it offers a lot more than that. So it also stabilizes our sediment. It can help if these storms and currents and lots of wave energy are coming toward the coastline, it can dampen down all of that energy, stabilizing the sediment, reducing waves and storm energy. And it sucks up nutrients, it can suck up pollutants from the water column and improve water quality. And finally, one of those things that it can suck up into the plants and then down into the roots is carbon. So it has, greenhouse benefits to us as well, and climate change benefits in that sense. And while it has many benefits, it also has many threats. Number one being degrading water quality. So as a plant, it does require sunlight to photosynthesize. Anything that reduces water clarity is going to impact that ability to photosynthesize and store, make the carbohydrates it needs to survive. So degrading water quality is often pointed to as the number one stressor for eelgrass, especially since us humans really like to build and develop in the coastline. A lot of our, coastal pollution drains into our estuaries. So that's our biggest battle here. But then, of course, there's physical impacts as well. Things like dredging for boat channels, placing moorings for boat anchors and boat chains in eelgrass meadows, and then coastal construction. Things like a homeowner wanting to put out a dock and a pier so that they can have their boat, off their property. Warming water is becoming an increasing threat for eelgrass. It has a pretty tight range that it's able to tolerate. In southern parts of its geographic area, it's been all but lost. Down in like the Carolinas and Virginia, they all have almost no eelgrass left because the water is warming so rapidly. Increased storms can be a major threat, and also disease. So with all of these threats, you can see how important it might be that we track the status of eelgrass. How is it doing? And MassBays does that through a partnership with Mass Department of Environmental Protection, or Mass DEP, through an eelgrass mapping project that we work on together. This has been long running since the 1990s. And it basically involves Mass DEP hiring an airplane to go up and fly over the coastline. They break it up into 4 different chunks, and each year a different chunk of the coastline is flown. And every 4 to 5 years, the whole cycle is repeated. So every 4 to 5 years, we're getting updated eelgrass maps, which is really great. So after the imagery is collected by the airplane, it looks a little something like that. And Mass DEP uses a practice called photo interpretation to draw what looks like a black line there where they think the eelgrass is. And then once they figure that out, they will place some field ground truthing points on the map. Then our team goes out and does some boat-based survey work to identify what's really there. Is it eelgrass? Is it algae? Is it rocks? And we use an underwater camera to do that. And you can learn a lot about what's going on the seafloor, but based on these images. So we see interesting fish, we see different species. The second picture down is actually that rupia widgeon grass species that I had mentioned. We can document extreme fouling or epiphyte growth on the grass, species that we don't expect, like the blue crab that you see doing a little photobomb there, and areas of extreme algae, like the bottom photo. So a lot to be learned from that. And from this practice, over the last 30 or so years of this mapping program, we have detected a 50% loss in what we once had. So we've lost about 20,000 acres of eelgrass in that time. So what can we do to address that loss? We can explore different means of restoration, passive means such as improving water quality. Like you see in the picture on the left, that is very murky water. Sunlight's not getting through that too easily. So you can do projects sort of up in the watershed that help to improve water quality. Or things like conservation moorings, get those boat moorings off of the seafloor where they're ripping up eelgrass to something that floats up off the seafloor. Also, we can try active restoration methods. So this is collecting shoots from one location, a healthy location, and transplanting them into a restoration site, for example, using whole shoots. Or more recently, we've been exploring the use of seeds for restoration. So then you're collecting flowering shoots, which, each flowering shoot might have hundreds or more seeds available on it, and then using those seeds in restoration. So we've been focusing more on seeds recently in the last several years. We're in partnership with a handful of other entities as well, including Mass Division of Marine Fisheries, to answer some research questions. Using seeds for eelgrass restoration has been very successful in some other places, including the Chesapeake Bay and Virginia coastal bays. So we want to try it up here in Massachusetts and see if we have success as well. But we need to know more before we're able to do that, such as when and where should we be harvesting these seeds? Are there some beds that are better to harvest from than others? What's the quality and viability of our seeds and the impact of harvesting them from our donor meadows? And then what planting methods work best and where? And sort of an overarching sort of save the species question is, can the migration of a climate hardy eelgrass seed be assisted by humans? A term called genetic rescue. So can we maybe take seeds from places in its range where eelgrass has shown some adaptation to high temperature and move those seeds sort of up the coastline to see if we can help facilitate local adaptation, build in some genetic variability in our meadows with those hardier seeds. So this is a pretty young science right now for eelgrass at least, and we're just at the start of it. And one of the last things I wanted to show you is a tour of our space that we do this work in. Unfortunately, it's not on the UMass Boston campus, but we do welcome visitors at the lab that we work in. This is at Mass DMF's Cat Cove Marine Lab in Salem, Massachusetts. And this is where we bring our flowering eelgrass shoots to sit in these seawater flow-through tanks. We're awaiting the seeds to drop off of the plants. Once they drop from those plants, we have to sort of sift through all the material in the tanks and get to the seeds that are down at the bottom of the tanks. They like to sink. We siphon those off the bottom and we can sieve them into this strainer here. And then we can run them through this flume device that helps to sort of separate and sort seeds by their viability. Because the more floaty a seed is, the less likely it is to be viable. The sort of heavier and sinkier it is, the higher viability it tends to have. So now using those seeds, we have a handful of restorations underway right now. We're planting 4 acres of eelgrass across 6 to 8 sites in Massachusetts through these 6 different towns that you see listed here. This is work that we started last summer and we will be planting over the next 2 summers. There are lots of volunteer opportunities here for anyone that might be interested. If you want to come out, get your hands wet, help fill the seed bags or help us with monitoring, we do welcome volunteers. So feel free to reach out. My email is shown there. And we hope we hear from you if you're interested. So with that, I would like to introduce the grad student that's been working on some of these projects with me, Aaron Shavitz, and he's gonna, you'll hear his voice next in describing his work with MassBays.
Excellent. Hi, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Jill. Yeah, since this talk is about seagrass and about careers, I wanted to sort of touch on the student centers, or rather the applied science centers based here at UMass Boston, and sort of how I've started working with seagrass and with MassBays. So just a quick sort of how I got here. I did my Bachelor's of Science at UVM, studied environmental science. And I worked in the private sector, sort of related to corporate sustainability for a little while, and then was looking for a bit of a career change. And so I came to UMass Boston, and very quickly, once I was pursuing my master's degree in marine science and technology here at the School for the Environment, there was outreach by MassBays to the student body looking for a grad student, and I was able to connect. And I've been working with MassBays for the last almost 1.5 years at this point. You can go to the next slide, Jill. And the first thing I really wanted to highlight about the UMass Boston centers is that they really enable students to connect with a wide host of organizations across the state of Massachusetts and beyond. The figure on the right here really just looks at some of the Massachusetts-based organizations that I directly work with, but it's just a small group of organizations from which I've met individuals just over the last year working with MassBays. And so the seagrass science that MassBays is doing, as well as the work that Urban Harbors Institute that you're going to hear about as well, their work really works across disciplines, so and across organization types. So of course you're working with a lot of academic professionals at UMass Boston and other universities, but also I've been working with federal professionals, state professionals, like at the Division of Marine Fisheries, various nonprofit groups in Massachusetts. There's really a lot of different local organizations, just with the long history of Massachusetts and a lot of local pride and the complexity of the coastline that really lends itself to lots of different local organizations, and also working with other municipal groups as well. So lots of people swimming around in the seagrass and lots of opportunities to connect with these different professionals, which is just excellent to develop one's career as a student. And it also captures the importance of the seagrass habitats and just how many different people have prioritized that as a scope of their work. You can go to the next slide, Jill. And finally, I just wanted to talk about sort of the professional career building opportunities that I've had with MassBays that I think also, again, sort of reflects the opportunities that can be available to students if they work the centers here at UMass Boston. So just, the pictures here are just various pictures of me. In one, I'm snorkeling and planting eelgrass seeds on the top left corner there. In the center, I'm driving a boat for the first time, and in the bottom left, I'm scanning the seeds that Jill was highlighting from the seagrass reproductive shoots. Just doing a bit of lab work there. That's in the same building where all those seeds were being stored in the videos that Jill showed. So all to say, this is all new to me. And other components that were new to me that are maybe less glamorous are just some of these applied technical skills. So I've been able to start using, working on my GIS skill set, as well as using statistical software tools, mainly R. So all to say, those of you who might be listening in that are interested in building their technical professional skill set, it's a great opportunity to be able to both get out in the field, but also learn a lot of those valuable desktop skills that can bring you to the next step in your career. It's one thing, again, for students that I wanted to highlight is that I really appreciated that working for the centers here working for MassBays and has enabled me to directly apply what I'm learning in my classes. And from my undergraduate experience, I remember feeling like, oh, maybe I really enjoy something. I find it really interesting. And then I move on to the next semester and I'm thinking about different classes and I haven't been able to apply what I've been working on. And so it's, these the centers of UMass Boston are, doing work that is related to what is being taught at UMass Boston, and it's just a great way to apply what you're learning there. And finally, I just wanted to highlight that I was anxious when I first started working with MassBays. Oh, is seagrass very niche? Is this not, a field of study that's going to have a lot of opportunities to it? But I really want to encourage anybody from many different disciplines to consider working with the UMass Boston centers and to consider seagrasses, because it really has it creates an opportunity for so many different disciplines. I've been digging into water quality science, of course, plant biology. There are folks, not myself, but that are working on the genetics of eelgrass. And then it connects to fisheries systems and, of course, data science, et cetera. And so, again, the Centers of UMass Boston and Seagrass really brings that all together. So just wanted to highlight that for all the students listening in. That's all I got. Thanks, Jill.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. MassBays will hand it over to Urban Harbors Institute now. Let me stop my share here.
Awesome. Thanks, Jill. And now Kim will hand it over to you.
All right, let me share my screen. Okay. All right, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. Whoops. All right, so my name is Kim Starbuck. I work at the Urban Harbors Institute as a senior research associate. There is an awkward headshot of me, which you guys can see. I got my undergrad from Tufts University here in Boston and was in the grad program here at UMass Boston through the School for Field Studies. I also studied abroad in Baja, Mexico, which that was probably the thing that really got me into marine science. It was the first time I actually saw whales and turtles in the environment and got out on boats and did a lot of research. And so that really kind of inspired me to get into the field. Some jobs that I had, so right out of school, I moved to California and worked in environmental education there, mostly focused around marine science. Then after that, I went down to Costa Rica and worked with sea turtles for a while, some nesting sea turtles. And then I came back to Boston and became the grad student, and then now working at Urban Harbors. As I said, I've been there now for about 10 years. Okay. And just a little bit about Urban Harbors. So we've been around for a long time. We were founded in 1989. We are an applied research institute in the School for the Environment. So mostly we are working with communities, primarily around Massachusetts, and providing research, help, technical assistance, and then advisory services. So really working with communities on what kinds of issues are they having with their waterfronts. And then we help them come up with recommendations as to how to fix those issues. Here are just some projects and focus areas that we work on. So we do a lot of harbor planning, which we create plans for communities' harbors based on what the community wants for their harbor. And then we also look at what are the problems going on in the harbor, how can we help solve those. We do a lot of work on managed retreat and coastal relocation planning. So that would be given the amount of flooding and erosion that's happening, is it possible to have a better plan for relocating from the coast? Obviously, it's kind of a sensitive issue, but it also is important to think about and talk about given climate change. We are working right now with the Division of Marine Fisheries on looking at commercial fishing infrastructure in Massachusetts and what docks and slips and moorings are available. We also are doing some work with plastic pollution, marine debris. We have a number of cleanups which you guys can participate in, and then we have lots of other projects. So we're fairly broad, as you can see. If you want to go to our website, you can see it right down there. And I'm going to be talking about our eelgrass work and how we have helped a variety of communities protect eelgrass through planning better. The one community I'm really going to focus on right now is Nantucket because we helped them come up with an eelgrass management plan last year. It was funded by a yacht club out on Nantucket, and a number of these slides did come from Tara Riley, and so I just want to give her credit for those slides. So what was the impetus for the plan? There has been a major eelgrass decline throughout Massachusetts, but also especially in Nantucket. And eelgrass is incredibly important to the habitat, as Jill was talking about. Specifically on Nantucket, Nantucket has a bay scallop fishery, and you can see some bay scallops there with, you can see some eelgrass that has come up. And so the eelgrass is really important. It's a really important habitat for the bay scallops, and without the eelgrass, the bay scallops wouldn't survive. So really important to look at ways to help protect that population and hopefully increase the population. The town has really been considering doing this plan for a really long time, and then finally got the funding to be able to do it. And the areas in Nantucket that we have focused on for the plan, it was Nantucket Harbor, which is, can you see my mouse, Shannon? Yeah, okay, so it's this area here, which is Nantucket Harbor, and this is the main area that has a lot of eelgrass. Then we have Matticat Harbor out here, and Tuckernuck Harbor, it's not a harbor, Tuckernuck Island. So they have a lot of eelgrass kind of all up in this area. Okay, so what was the purpose of the plan? So we wanted to look at what were historic conditions like for eelgrass. So what kind of eelgrass was around a long time ago, what eelgrass is around now. We wanted to look at what are the big stressors for eelgrass. So what's really impacting the population, and then come up with recommendations as to how we can help reduce or eliminate those stressors. So this was a cool part of the project where I went into the historical photo library. And if you ever want to do that for Nantucket, they have a whole huge photo library online. And it's just kind of crazy what Nantucket used to look like. If you've visited Nantucket at all, you know it doesn't look like this anymore. So this was the main pier right here. And you can see, this right here is the deeper water that's heading into the pier. And you can see what the village looked like. And then over here on the right, you can see this is Mattocket Harbor. And so we were looking at these photos, and it's kind of hard to figure out where eelgrass might be or where it might not be. But right now, the town's looking at all of these photos and trying to see if there's a way they can analyze that. For instance, are some of these areas that are gray, is that where eelgrass used to be? So a little hard to figure out, but the town is looking into that. And then here you can see more recent conditions. So in 1995, those are the dark green areas for eelgrass. 2015 is where it's a yellowy area, and then 2019 is the blue crosshatch. So you can see there used to be a lot more eelgrass out there, and then it has slowly declined. So here you can see lots of stressors for Nantucket, for the Nantucket eelgrass population. There are physical stressors from what's going on in the harbor, like boating, moorings, fishing, and then other types of harbor projects like construction. There are chemical stressors, and those could be things that are affecting water quality, like nutrient inputs coming from fertilizers, harmful algal blooms, and stormwater issues. Let's see what else. Environmental stressors, and that could be climate change, sea level rise, an increase in storms, which might rip up that eelgrass. And then just other contaminants of emerging concern, which are things that people are looking into, like microplastics or sunscreen. So really, we documented all the stressors people talked about, and so we have them all in one place. And so now moving into what kinds of recommendations did we come up with for eelgrass? The first big thing is Nantucket wants to protect what they have right now. They don't want to see the eelgrass decline anymore. After that, they want to look into research and monitoring, figure out how they can monitor the population better so they know if there are increases or decreases in the population. They want to do a bunch of education and outreach to make sure people know what eelgrass is. A number of people that I've spoken to about this project, they didn't know what eelgrass even was. So if you imagine a visitor coming into Nantucket Harbor and they're looking to moor their boat somewhere, the mooring, or anchor their boat somewhere, anchors could potentially rip up eelgrass. So they might not be as concerned about ripping up eelgrass if they don't really know what it is or why it's important. And then for restoration, so looking at where are areas that they might be able to restore the population. And that could come into things like seeding or other methods. So this is just an example of something that was in the plan. If you want to, at the end, there's a QR code where you could look at the whole plan. And we had a ton of recommendations in there. Again, this is just an example, but we had it all broken down into goals, objectives, and then recommendations. So the goal here would be to protect the existing stable and growing eelgrass bed. And then the recommendation here is really to define indicators that would identify which beds are considered stable, what's considered growing, and then what's considered declining or degraded. And so this is something that was really important to Nantucket, and they wanted to move forward with that. And really, there's a reason why there are populations that are stable or growing. Potentially, they have the best environmental conditions. And so those areas really should be prioritized for protection because they've made it through for whatever reason. So that area is a good area to protect. Here's just another example for protection. So this would be water quality and improving water quality. Fertilizers are a really big issue on Nantucket, promoting native lawns and then, not having all the fertilizers go in and just continuing the education and implementation of the fertilizer regulations. Research and monitoring, so lots of research that could happen on eelgrass, but one would be just generally impacts of all the different stressors. So you could pick a stressor and then do a study on that. Looking at genetics, so is the population of of eelgrass in Nantucket Harbor? Is it at all different from what's in Mattocket Harbor? What is the optimal time to collect seed? And then what is the tolerance of eelgrass to warming temperatures? The temperature in Nantucket Harbor gets very warm during the summer, warmer than it ever used to be. And what is eelgrass's tolerance to that? And then, so education and outreach, here are some examples. Develop an outreach plan to increase awareness of eelgrass and support for research, protection, and restoration. And then also to create a public-facing map that shows the locations of eelgrass beds and share that with boaters. Another issue for eelgrass is boaters speeding through the harbor. And so it's important for them to know where is that eelgrass, and hopefully that will help them reduce their speeds. And then for restoration, conduct small test plot studies before they do a large transplant to make sure those test plot studies are successful. And then also to determine the best restoration method for different sites. Lots of different options for restoration methods. And so look into different seeding options and which one would be better for different areas. Next step, so Nantucket right now has already hit the ground running. They are looking into prioritizing all of the recommendations and determining what's the feasibility of actually being able to do the recommendation. And that comes down to funding, time, how long is it going to take? So that gets into short-term and long-term recommendations. Some recommendations are things they can do right now. They're really low-hanging fruit. And then what's something that would happen further in the future? And again, a lot of that just goes back to what funding is available, what are people's capacities, and so lots of different factors that go into that. One other thing just to note is there are a lot of regulations out there that do protect the eelgrass habitat. So they are protected under the Clean Water Act of 1972. They also are designated an essential fish habitat by NOAA Fisheries. A number of towns have wetland protection regulations that do protect eelgrass. And then there also was a new Commonwealth bill that did establish eelgrass as the official marine flora of the state. So that's exciting and does bring more attention to eelgrass. So if you wanted to dive even deeper, the plan is located on the Nantucket Natural Resources Department website, and you can follow that QR code to access it. And here you can see this is my email address. You can email me, or right now we do have some time for questions.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Kim. Thanks, everyone. That was a great presentation, both MassBays and UHI. So yeah, right now we'll open it up to questions. You can raise your hand. You can put questions in the chat. It's a pretty open webinar, so feel free to ask questions, or if you have any comments or feedback or anything. Anyone got a question? Don't be shy. Okay, well, I do have a question. It's related to the eelgrass management plan. Kim, how did community engagement, like how was that conducted in the eelgrass management plan? Or how did you work with the public?
Yeah, so we did have a really big team that worked on the plan, and that included people from the town, a number of stakeholder groups, so groups that could be impacted by eelgrass, that could could be impacting eelgrass, and different biologists. We had people from other states involved, other research scientists. So we had a really big team, and then we did so we developed the plan, and then we had a public comment period. So we posted the draft plan online and allowed people to provide any public comments to us through email or through a survey. And so generally, whenever we do plans, we do open up a public comment period, because it's really important for, these plans are really meant to help the public. They're meant to help the entire town. And so we want them to have an opportunity to weigh in, maybe provide feedback if they don't agree with a recommendation, or also they could let us know something else that we should consider including.
Awesome. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, and one other thing to note, if you guys also have any questions about our career paths or any questions about, you're thinking about your future and the type of career you're looking to get into, we might be able to help with that.
Well, I'm not seeing any questions or anything, so we'll give some. Oh, we got one. Awesome. Okay, Maddie said, how are you able to determine the quantitative impact eelgrass has on improving water quality? So this, I'm going to give this to MassBays to start.
Yeah, the our way of understanding that currently is largely through lab studies. It's really hard to do that sort of quantitative work in the field just because there's so many variables at play that you cannot control that can affect water quality. So those studies are largely done in the lab, but in places where eelgrass restoration or protection have been really successful, there's sort of these more anecdotal accounts of water quality being improved or maintained. And there's opposite to that, there's case studies where the loss of eelgrass pretty rapidly corresponded with increased turbidity, murkiness of the water. So they're a little bit more anecdotal, but I think just as valuable as the quantitative studies. Thanks for that question.
All right. Question about locations where we can volunteer. And I think that's probably relating to MassBays restoration efforts.
Yeah, thanks. I love that question. If you want to participate in the restoration work, those towns that I had listed earlier, those 6 towns, and we're really up and down the coast here from Gloucester all the way down to Plymouth for that particular project. Reach out to me by my email. I'll put it in the chat too so that you can just copy it there. And I can give a little more information about our schedule for that work and more detailed information about the locations. If you're not local to our study area, there is work happening all across New England, believe it or not. So we have counterparts, other NEPs, and other partners across New England that are really doing similar work with seeds right now. So even if you can't come out on one of our sites, I'm happy to connect you with any of these other partners. And then there's another question about organisms seen in the eelgrass. Turtles. I don't think we have turtles nesting or hatching in our grasses up here in New England, but other seagrass species definitely support turtles in the more tropical regions. Up here, it's really incredible. If you ever have an opportunity to snorkel around our eelgrass meadows, which are really accessible from shore, many of them. You just see such a diversity of life there from lobsters and squid, crabs, fish. Eelgrass does support a lot of small schooling fish and also flatfish like flounders and nudibranchs. It's really incredible. It's maybe not the exciting megafauna that we sometimes think of when we think marine ecology. It's not whales and dolphins, but it's really these incredible lower trophic level species that are the foundation for everything else. So really pretty incredible. Kim, did you want to add anything to that in terms of species? I don't know the Nantucket meadows as well, but being warmer, they might support even more diversity there.
Not really much to add. Just one thing, the green crab population is invasive and it is affecting the eelgrass population. And so Nantucket does have a program where they cull the eelgrass and actually will take it out of the environment and unfortunately kill them. And then they'll use them as fertilizer on island. So that's one way that you know, these organisms are maybe negatively impacting eelgrass, and then, ways to actually take them out of the environment and hopefully use them for something else. They have like a whole green crab week. They call it like the Green Crab Festival. They make it a whole big deal. But another way that they try to include the public in learning more about eelgrass, and they have them help with the culling program.
Another organism sighting that we were pretty excited about last summer was a pretty large sand tiger shark off the coast of Gloucester. We were doing eelgrass monitoring there, and this big, probably 6 foot long sand tiger shark just gracefully swam right through our group of divers. It was pretty incredible. They don't normally, spend a lot of time in eelgrass meadows, but if their prey are there, they sure will. So that was sort of an unusual sighting for us. It shouldn't make you afraid to swim in the eelgrass meadows, though.
I guess just a question for you guys. Have you ever seen eelgrass yourselves? Maybe when you're out swimming, I see one no, or out wading in shallow waters. I know I've been swimming in Nantucket Harbor during the summer and seen just tons of eelgrass all over. It's pretty cool to see. Maddie has. She says yes.
Awesome.
All right. Any other questions or comments from anyone? As Jill, as Kim, and Aaron mentioned, there are definitely volunteer opportunities in the School for the Environment at MassBays at UHI. So I put Jill's email in the chat. I'll also put Kim's email in the chat. But our websites, if you just Google MassBays or if you Google UHI, you can find a lot of information on there as well. So feel free to reach out. Feel free to connect with us. We're also on campus in McCormick. So yeah, just happy to connect with you guys. Oh, we have another question. Have there been any other collaborations with other estuaries in the National Estuary Program?
Yes, I love that question. That's sort of a more recent development where we've all found each other. Everybody's sort of dealing with these losses of seagrass in similar ways, and we've all really been connecting recently and sharing best practices, partnering on projects, meeting regularly to just glean from each other's lessons learned, and not reinvent the wheel in terms of protocols that we should be using in the field, or sharing unusual observations. Did you see this kind of die off, or have you been, is your eelgrass covered in this kind of algae? And we've got it to a point now where we're like, texting while we're in the field. Are you seeing this? Are you seeing that? So it's a really nice level of coordination, especially among the New England states. So I'd say we're very, very closely coordinating with our counterparts in Rhode Island. There's actually another NEP in Massachusetts in the Buzzards Bay area, and up in New Hampshire and Maine. So we're coordinating very closely, and it's a huge tool that we have at our advantage. There's another national program called the National Estuarine Research Reserve. This is a NOAA funded program rather than our EPA funded program, but they're both federal, and they both focus on our estuaries. So that's another sort of less tapped resource that we have to us, but something that we need a little bit more work to develop the partnerships with them and be, sharing these lessons learned with those folks as well. We're all working in the estuaries, so it only makes sense to partner up.
I can jump into one question that I saw from Ariel, which also has seen eelgrass, so that's great. But in terms of the green crabs, so they're not actually removing eelgrass, they're removing the green crabs. Sorry, I might have misspoke on that. But so they are removing the green crabs. I put a link in the chat of the whole green crab week that they do, and you can see all of the different events that they have about the green crab. And one of them being what I had talked about, where they take the green crabs and actually make them into a fertilizer. I guess I didn't realize this. I guess they also let people eat the green crabs, which I didn't know you could eat green crabs. I also don't eat any seafood, but Yeah, so it's right now it just has the 2025 schedule up, but I'm sure they're doing it again this year. So if you're interested in getting involved and going out to Nantucket, maybe you could even stay at the field station. There's some options there.
If
Ariel,
I
I've
can
heard the
just
same. Oh, sorry. I've heard the same that they do make a good soup. That's one of the best culinary uses of them is a soup or a stock. Yeah.
Just to build on that, I don't know if it's the same week, but there's at least there has been in previous years a green crab week in which partner restaurants that have chefs that are interested in eating the invasives, if you will actually cook green crab and you can have it on their menu. So that's something to look out for as well if you're interested in helping fight invasive species, intrusion, and also get a good meal out of it. So.
I've had both green crab soup. It was very salty the way it was prepared, and also soft-shelled green crab. And that was quite rare because they're only soft-shelled for like 12 hours or something. So we had like a quarter of one, but it was delicious.
Innovative ways to use invasive species. So I know there's a lot of work being done also in other New England states to kind of create a market for green crab. I know Maine has been working on that as well. And also, I just wanted to note that I just put the link in there for the UMass Boston Nantucket Field Station as well. They do offer courses. It's great to go out there in the summertime. There's overnight courses there. There are also both, intern and volunteer opportunities at the field station as well. So, feel free to take a look at their website. I think they have a Facebook, I believe, and they post a lot of updates on there. If you have any questions about it, all of us are also familiar with the field station and we can answer questions we have or put you, in contact with the director over there.
Yeah, and right next to the field station, it's right on the harbor if you haven't been there, and you could wade out or swim out and see the eelgrass right there if you haven't seen it before. Watch out for jellyfish, though. I was swimming there and there were tons of jellyfish, long tentacles.
Any remaining questions or comments?
I would just add that both centers do occasionally have graduate research assistantship positions open up. But even if we don't have one open at the time and you have a different faculty member that you're working with on a special project or your thesis, hopefully I could speak for both centers and say we're open to assisting in some way with that. If you find that eelgrass management or restoration or research is your interest, we're happy to be part of a team to help, provide some guidance or thoughts, some direction on your study. We are fully integrated with the School for the Environment, so we're very happy to provide that service if students need.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point, Jill. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we can end it. Give you 10 minutes back of your day. But thank you for joining us. This will be recorded. So if you have any questions or you want to watch it again, we'll make sure to get it posted online and share it through our media channels as well. But thank you everyone for being here. It was great to talk to you all and talk about seagrasses, and happy Earth Week. I know there's other events going on around campus, so make sure to check those out as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.